Well, Bryan Hubbard and Angela Skudin, welcome back to Common Sense CEO.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you guys both back. We had you back here in May, and it was a great conversation where, Bryan, you were leading the you are the leader of the Americans for Ibogaine initiative, but it was also the Texas Ibogaine initiative, which we're proud to say, I think within 24 hours of us putting this last episode out and recording, it did go through. So we're going to jump right into it. Can you speak to, kind of remind the audience what it was you were doing, what we talked about last time, what actually happened, and where Texas is leading our country from here?
So just to give the context, I was the first chairman of Kentucky's Opioid Commission, which had as its responsibility the dispersal and administration of about $1 billion in settlement funds which had been secured from opioid manufacturers and distributors for their role in creating and perpetuating the opioid epidemic, an epidemic that continues to rage almost unabated throughout American society. And at the time that I had that job, I said, we have to foster a therapeutic breakthrough for opioid dependency. Our best options are delivering unacceptably mediocre results despite all the best of intentions. And I came into knowledge about Ibogaine. Ibogaine being an alkaloid that has been in use by West African cultural tradition that's called the Bwiti for centuries as part of their spiritual practice. It's psychoactive, which means that it activates the mind and the heart together in a way that gives an individual a new way of experiencing reality and their relationship to it. It also happens to have breakthrough therapeutic potential for the treatment of opioid dependency, and it does that by essentially restoring the brain to its state of proper neurochemical health within 36 to 48 hours, something that nothing else can do. And it does so by restoring an individual's dopamine and serotonin production to that which existed before they ever took the first opioid, no matter how long they've used it and no matter how much they have used. And that applies to 80% of people who get but a single treatment. That number goes up to 97% with a second supportive dose. This ability to resolve opioid withdrawal syndrome and the neurochemical brain injury opioid dependency brings makes it a revolutionary therapeutic that's different from anything we have. I had proposed that we take 5% of the state's settlement funds, or $42 million, to create a public-private partnership to fund one FDA drug development trial that at its end would see Ibogaine approved by the United States government and fully integrated into the U.S. medical system, available for anyone who would choose to use that therapeutic pathway. That project was ended by a partnership of actors in Kentucky who owe much of their existence to the financial support of the opioid-maintenance industry, the industry which stands to have most of its bottom line disrupted if there is the successful creation of Ibogaine as a treatment for opioid dependency. After months of searching for a state where this project could receive supportive leadership, I was blessed to be contacted by former Texas Governor Rick Perry through the Kentucky process and became friends with him. And in August of 2024, I received a phone call from some stakeholders in Texas, one of which is Texans for Greater Mental Health and their executive director, Logan Davidson. Texas had previously pioneered the use of public funds for the advancement of psychedelic research with the passage of Texas House Bill 1801, which was a $2 million psilocybin project attached to Baylor College of Medicine. And in this discussion, the question was, Texas has a $16 billion budget surplus with which it's going to be working in 2025. What should the next project be? And my answer was, Texas needs to finish the job that was begun in Kentucky. And so then I reached out again to Governor Perry. I explained to him what I perceived to be a viable opportunity for Texas to do just that. And he said, if you don't mind to come in and quarterback this effort, I'll be the coach and let's get it done. So I visited with you in May on what was the back end of an intensive 7-month, just full court press campaign to take the blank slate of the entire Texas legislature and its 179 members divided between the House and the Senate, educate them fully on what Ibogaine is, while simultaneously making a persuasive case to the very conservative political leadership that represents the state in the governor's mansion, and in particular, the lieutenant governor's office, Dan Patrick. This was a white-knuckle, nail-biting, pedal-to-the-metal campaign front to back. And at the time that we visited the first time, its fate was unknown. And I am thrilled to death to confirm for your audience that on June 9, Governor Abbott, with the blessing of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, signed into law a $50 million appropriation to create the public-private partnership designed for Kentucky, but that has now been salvaged, rescued, and elevated by the Lone Star State to help make Ibogaine a reality within the United States. This is historic on two fronts. One, the $50 million appropriation from the state of Texas is the single largest public appropriation for psychedelic research and medical development in all of history. It has never been done at this scale. Secondly, this is the first time an individual state has said enough. Enough on the weight, enough on the corruption, enough on the incompetence of federal systems that will not respond to the situation on the ground, and has made a direct investment to foster a breakthrough therapeutic drug for the treatment of multiple concurrent public health crises planned out within its borders, which is representative of the national reality. And as I sit here with you now, there are multiple states which are gearing up over the course of 2026 and 2027 to join in direct partnership with Texas to make Ibogaine a reality in America.
And that's amazing. If I had an audience here, I'd say we need to clap that up.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I
Come on,
mean,
guys.
people, on my previous episode that I had Angela here and another guest, a firefighter who used the treatment and talks about how it saved his life. People don't realize we are all. If you could throw a rock, we all have someone we love, we know, who is suffering from addiction, who's suffering from PTSD, who's suffering from fill in the blank, that this could help. This can literally save lives over and over and over again. And to your point, because of a political conversation in the 1960s, it's not been allowed, to be researched any further. So, you speak to some of these other states that are now going to step in and help. What does that process look like? Say all of these states in 2026 follow Texas, and we now have multiple states willing to give, maybe not the 50 million, because as you said, that's, unheard of for psychedelic research, but maybe they all start adding money to the cause. Do we band together? Is it each individual state? What does the process look like from here so that those of us living in Texas who might really want to have access or have someone we want to get help for, or there are, people like my dad, we spoke to that, he runs a treatment center, they want to start, incorporating this medicine into their treatment, things like that. How does that process look? Where do we go from here?
Each state legislature will appropriate funds to fund the expansion of the clinical trial that will begin into Texas, into their borders. So we're going to use Mississippi as an example.
Okay.
On August the 28th, I and about a half a dozen others traveled to Jackson, Mississippi, and delivered testimony to their state legislature's Joint Public Health Committee on this very subject. It was a remarkable gathering, especially considering that Mississippi is widely considered to be probably the most conservative by every measure state in the country. And to deliver testimony about the breakthrough therapeutic potentials of a psychedelic on the floor of that Capitol was remarkable and illustrates the opportunity that is at hand. If Mississippi decides to join Texas, they would pass an appropriations bill, and that appropriations bill would probably provide several millions of dollars to fund, for instance, the Ole Miss Medical Center to host the clinical trial with partnership of the drug developer that would be selected in Texas to conduct that trial. For your audience, any time that a drug is developed, you have to have a developer who has the necessary subject matter expertise and financial resources to engage in the science that's necessary to first test on animals, test on healthy humans, and then to determine whether it is an effective and safe medication for the condition it's being developed. This is the process that we have, and this is the process that we've got to follow. So when Texas selects its developer, that developer will start a single trial, one trial, through which this drug will be tested for opioid use disorder and co-occurring substance use disorder. Anytime a drug developer conducts a trial, It must be geographically and demographically diverse because you want to make sure that you are demonstrating efficacy across all walks of life and that there isn't some peculiar biological reality within any segment of American society that would create a deleterious impact or a special risk for an individual population. So, by virtue of an FDA drug development trial, it has to be in multiple states. Those states must be diverse. So, by virtue of Mississippi putting forward Mississippi money to fund a Mississippi facility to host the drug developer that will initially be chosen in Texas to expand out that trial, we are killing two birds with one stone in terms of expanding the scope, scale, and speed of the trial, while also making sure that we fit the FDA's requirements of geographic and demographic diversity. And I believe in 2026, Mississippi will probably be one of 6 states where this kind of legislation will be brought to the floor for consideration.
The Mississippi legislators are very committed to this process, and we've actually given them 343 guys that have gone through to testify.
Nice.
And one
And
already
they're from
has.
Mississippi? Or that you just took
No.
them there? Yeah.
One was retired out of North Carolina and lives in Florida now, but he had great results with a traumatic brain injury, pre and post Ibogaine. I was down with him on his journey the end of June. He wrote down pre and post journey what had happened for him. We knew he had a TBI. He'd get hit in the face with a brick during a riot. He was a SWAT officer in Charlotte, and he was suffering greatly. On his list, he said he hated humanity.
Wow.
He was living a victim of this traumatic brain injury. He was also on a CPAP machine because he had major breathing issues from getting hit so hard in the face.
Right.
He had a post-journey scan. I asked him if he and I could split a post-journey scan because I was so interested in seeing what happened to his TBI. His TBI is greatly resolved. It's not completely resolved, but
Just diminished. Smaller.
yeah, when you see on paper,
side by side.
yeah,
sure.
and he's telling you this is how I felt when I wanted to die, and now he loves life.
Yeah.
And he says he feels he's been restored to the way that he felt pre-police work.
Wow.
So if you're not wanting to give that gift to a first responder, if you're not wanting to give that gift, to a veteran or to a human, you're simply just not for humanity at this point.
Sure.
So.
Sure.
And even
so,
the limited studies that are out there now have shown such huge results. And we already know, like Bryan's talking about, they're going to do this with an opioid crisis. We already know what this does to an opioid crisis.
Right.
So all that's in the way is just a proper study so that people can
the
see
red
the
tape.
power
The
of
red
this.
tape, sure.
Yeah.
To make it a
Now,
medicine available. To people.
I feel like it's important for people to understand, though, how this gets doled out and whatnot
Right. You're not buying it like Tylenol at CVS.
It also
when
has
it's-
nothing to do with Bryan Hubbard and Americans for Ibogaine or any of the entities that are helping push this along. Like, everybody's doing their job. Service providers are providing the medicine. Integration people are providing integration. Lobbyists are providing that. So people are staying in their lane. They're taking it as far as they need to go, and it's up to our individual governments
State governments, right.
to figure out how they're appropriating this to their populations. But we're still at the red tape step.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. And so if you're someone or someone who, maybe for whatever reason, maybe they're not a first responder and they can't get in through 343 and they want to do something like Ambio, but they can't afford it, or for whatever reason, they can't take a week to go down to Mexico, or there's a wait list, or whatever the case may be, and they want to be part of the study when that time comes. Is that going to be something where, hey, you want to get clean, you want to get sober, you have addiction problems, that you can't do it on your own? Is that a process that's going to be available to the masses? Is that something where, the scientist will handpick them? How does that process work?
Anytime you have an FDA clinical trial for medication development, you have to recruit clinical trial participants. So this is not a process, unfortunately, that will result in the swinging of the door wide to everyone who has an addiction issue. What it is going to provide is an opportunity for individuals with an addiction issue to volunteer to be a subject of the study and to be a clinical trial participant to test, does it work? Is it safe? And in fact, I've reversed those questions. Is it safe? Does it work? And this is all part of what the FDA's ostensible purpose is, which is to make sure that any medication that makes its way into the hands of an individual through a healthcare facility or the physician pad is safe and works. Now, we can debate, well,
I was
there's
going to
ample
say,
evidence
hold on.
to suggest that the FDA has not necessarily, has not
hiccup
conformed
somewhere.
to what that purpose is.
Sure.
But this gets into the broader reality that this project is illustrating.
Well,
We have gone far afield from the integrity of intent with which so many of our governmental systems have been established. We have seen the broad-based devolution of America's civic health for at least the past 30 years. And what this project gives us is an opportunity to start cleaning some filth out, and to the extent it can't be cleaned, it shall be exposed.
I guess that's my concern, right? Is like, I would sign up for the study because I know it works. I've met people who've done it and I know it works. My fear for, and you, maybe y'all are finding the right people to be partners with this, is, you know, the medical company signs up, they get with Ole Miss, they do this, they find true addicts, they do the study, and it does work. We have the brain scans that show here's the brain before, here's the brain after. We see physical changes in the brain. It's working. And there are a lot of people with a lot of money out there that stand to lose when that happens. So how are they going to overcome that? And, you know, is it?
That's why we have the public dollar at play. If you leave something like this in the hands of purely private capital markets, the possibility that you are eliminating here becomes very real. The necessity of bringing the public dollar to bear is to exercise the sort of authority over the project which will ensure that if successful and complete, it is available. It has to be both. It has to be successfully demonstrated, it has to be completed in terms of the process, and then it has to be deployed throughout the society and integrated into the medical system. There is a story that I heard a gentleman tell who worked for a pharmaceutical company that had developed a tremendously effective treatment for a specific variety of solid cancer tumor to the tune of like 90% efficacy. You administer it and it went away. And they shelved the drug precisely because it was effective.
Right.
Now, this was a private company, privately held, privately funded. And those things very well may likely and probably do happen pretty often. Suboxone was created with $62.5 million of public money. No one has any problem getting it, whether it's at a clinic or whether it's out here on the street. Now, we don't ever want Ibogaine to be available on the street because it's dangerous.
Sure.
It has to be administered in a clinically controlled medical setting. But if we can build a recovery infrastructure from sea to sight and sea and do things like pump 110 million doses of Suboxone into Kentucky over 5 years to a Medicaid population of 1.6 million people and make sure that there's a Suboxone clinic in every community that is poor, that also happens to have, you know, poor white folks and poor black folks, and that it is universally accessible, we can make Ibogaine universally accessible.
The other part about it is people have choice. We live in a free market society, right?
Right.
So I think that they've already proven that that's just a fear that doesn't exist, because when you look at organic food versus conventional, both of those markets exist freely, and they both sell billions, and it's almost the same. So I think over time, the markets for that, you know, will even out. Not everybody, people are going to still choose the old ways, and that's a choice, and that's available, you know. I mean, what we know about alcohol now, and alcohol is something that a lot of people that go through this process kind of leave behind once they go through Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT treatment, but it's still available. It's still on the market, and people are still available to choose that. So I think that as this goes on, it'll kind of even itself out. The market will even itself out and figure itself out. But if we're talking about that we're trying to keep something from people because we're scared that something else isn't going to be as profitable, that right there is the root cause of why we're in this whole situation.
I agree completely. And as you mentioned, when it's done, because I've too heard of studies where they've found things to eradicate this disease, this cancer, this whatnot, you know, with a pretty high efficacy, and then it's not available. It goes away. It's, it's altered some, so it might help some, but not completely like it could. And, or, side effects are added to, it could do this. And so that creates a fear, right? And people don't want to do it. And you're right. Some people may not want to sign up for what the journey calls for, right? They may not want to sign up for not being comfortable. People don't like to be uncomfortable, and you might be uncomfortable for a day for a long-term effect, and some people can't see past that day, right? So, or, we've talked about, there are plenty of addicts out there who will convince themselves I'm not an addict, or when it becomes time to take it, they back out because, they don't want to change their ways. So,
and some people want to stay sick people.
Right.
Like and that's a choice too,
For sure.
And it's okay. And we live in a society that takes really good care of sick people, know?
Right.
So it's a personal choice. But the thing about it is so many people are out there naysaying everything, and we're still busy over here cutting red tape. Like,
right.
we haven't even gotten inside yet, folks.
Right.
So I think it's just, we should all be excited and happy and proud that we've been shepherded this far by minds like Bryan Hubbard.
For sure.
And that everybody should just support those people. There's no way they're going to table this.
Right.
Not if we're breathing. I believe
Right.
that.
No, that's cool.
Well, and I think that was why so many people liked the last episode. They said, I don't know who this Bryan guy is, but you can tell that, well, now they do, but you can tell that the passion that you have for this project, and then when you at the end said, and how am I gonna not eat my own cooking, right? I finally said, I'm going down there and I'm doing it myself. And then to speak to your own experience, because it's so easy for people to sell anything, push anything, want anything, and not do it themselves. In my own business, I'm a financial advisor. I know plenty of them who will sell their clients one thing or put them in one thing, and they don't do it themselves. Like, where's the integrity in that? So for you to say, okay, and now I'm going to go do it too, and let people know, you do come out the other side. You are going to be okay. You are going to make it, because, the naysayers will tell you all the reasons you shouldn't do it. And that you're always going to have that. But I'm very proud to have met and know both of you, to your point, because y'all are going to not stop. And for me, I know so many people, my dad used to joke, I didn't know when I sent you to your high school, it was going to be a never ending, stream of clients for me, because frankly, we know so many people affected by addiction. And so if this could help even one person, it's totally worth it. So what are the next steps? What's the big picture here? Where do we take this from here?
So
beyond we know we're joining with Mississippi and doing the clinical trial. So what's beyond that with the red tape?
Well, you've alluded to it just a few seconds ago. The goal that Angela and I and all those who align with this mission share is to create the unstoppable external force that will this into reality. That external force is political in terms of the creation of a multi-state coalition that will partner with Texas, deploying both financial and political capital to crash through an ossified and corrupted federal wall, to give reformists who are trying to clean it up on the inside a leverage point from outside those walls to accelerate all the changes that are necessary to help make a medication like Ibogaine that is genuinely restorative available to the American people. This is a medical project. It is a political project. It is a cultural project. And going back to a previous observation, I think that people who are within the age of 50 or see a distance of there recognize that the America we have is very different from the America into which we were born. Okay. We live in a very paradoxical time where there are a lot of just fantastically exciting possibilities out there that can substantially improve the human condition. But they exist shoulder to shoulder with a tremendous amount of control-driven malevolence that aims to put the bit and bridle into every human being's mouth so that people who aim to be God can ride them without mercy. And this is a mission that is about adjusting our trajectory and repairing the fundamental fabric of American society, and to reestablish its foundation upon one which recognizes our common human divinity as special beings who have special rights that no one can take away from us. And that begins with the autonomy over our own bodies to pursue that restoration that we need, deserve, and should have by right with access to God's medicine.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, for sure. And, we speak about access to God's medicine. I think God put you exactly where you needed to be in Kentucky that day when, you were asked to come up with a project and started doing your research. I think you could probably speak to God has placed so many of the right people like Angela in your life along the way to help continue sharing the message and getting it out there so that ultimately it got to the right person's ears, and Governor Perry and things like that. I mean, we talk about how this is a divine medicine. Can you speak more to that? Because I think so many people, I know we talked about this, there's this concern potentially that, if it's a root and it comes from the earth, are we going to take it all away and there won't be any left? How does all that look? Can y'all speak a little more to those things?
Well, Bryan and I are on a mission from God,
Right.
and my soul is here in the same place where his soul is. And until every soul is free, we're still on that mission from God. So I think that what he said about us having a right over our bodies, and it feels like it gets really difficult to heal around here. It feels like it's really easy to get really comfortable in your personal hell that exists in your surroundings. And we're really comfortable being in that personal hell. But when we see other people, and some of them are in this room right now, and they've gone through this journey, and they don't have that in their life anymore, and they're still existing, and they're still existing fine. For myself, I haven't seen a doctor since I sat with Iboga for any sickness, any cold, any disease. I haven't needed anything. Well, before that, I was spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on my medical care and coming close to death. And I was offered surgeries. Nothing was covered by my health insurance except for these surgeries that I ended up not needing. I rehabbed my whole body. And right now, as I sit, I give a lot of money to supplements, to NAD plus, to peptides, to different things like that. And I'm giving no money to the traditional Western medicine industry, none. Now, I still have to have health insurance for my family and I, and it's costing me $3,500 a month. And that is not sustainable. So
That's
from my,
insane.
and if I don't have that and something happens to me, I'm collectible. So I'm going to lose all my money without that. $3,500 a month. I haven't used it once in years, but it's still, it's a huge imprint. And if I saved up for a few months, I can go get out of even needing medicine. So we're in this real strange cycle here where if we free ourselves, we're not worth a whole lot of money. I'm not bringing in, it's not costing tens of thousands of dollars a month to keep me alive right now. And I'm not using any of my health insurance. So I'm a real waste of the system, except that I'm spending a bunch of money on longevity stuff too, and taking really good care of myself. So like I was saying,
I'm right there with you.
The fact that this will transition naturally, but we have to have the trust within ourselves. We have to have the trust to know that this medicine does nothing but bring people closer to God. It brings people closer to source. Okay. We talk about, we get on our hands and knees within religious walls all the time and throw money in baskets. And we talk about that we believe in this. We trust this, right? We trust this. We trust this with our whole heart. We know heaven exists, Well, I'm here to tell you that I know that it does and that I believe it in my whole heart without throwing money in a basket or getting on my knees, on a Sunday. I know in my heart it exists. How do I know that? Because of the journey that I've walked and what I've had to get through. If I don't tell everybody that I know about this, what kind of a human being am I? So that's kind of where we're at now. Like, if the states want to come along, come along. And that's, we're doing that by our right and by what we think we need to do in America as citizens of this country, because we can go to other countries. And he and I could go underground on this all day long and get everybody on our train there, but that's not going to get anybody on your train there or your train, you know? And in order for us to do this movement, we need everybody involved. And we need everybody to be able to have that opportunity.
Well, so, you keep saying it's a human issue. It's a humanity issue. You know, to your point, I would love, you know, the old saying used to be, if you had the cure for cancer, wouldn't you share it? Well, we don't know anymore because we're pretty sure someone has the cure for cancer and they're not sharing it. But I would share it. You would share it clearly. And this is, you know, in effect, our own cure for cancer because, to your point, it heals everything. It heals the current humanity issue we're dealing with for sure in this country right now. Because if you can draw every single person closer to God, think of all the things that we see on the TV every day, you know, and we may not eradicate all of it because, to your point, greed is still very real and very alive. The media still wants to sell my pillows, so they're going to make you, you know, clicks are real. That makes them money. So there's always going to be headlines to terrify people and everything else. But if this can be to what you guys are, kind of from the root, you know, roots up, groundbreaking project that every single person slowly it trickles out. It may not happen this week. It may not happen this month. It may not happen this decade. But ultimately, people will at least have the choice, the ability to get the medicine that could save humanity. Because if not, the other option is not great.
You know what's a great thing, too, is that, you know, we're not always going to be here, right? Iboga is always going to be here, you know? And if we don't get it figured out, you know what I mean? God knows there's more humans coming to give it another chance. So it was here before us. It's here for us. And, you know, at least now, I think we've learned so much in the past 5 years about our medical system. I was really sick with Lyme disease pre-COVID. So I kind of had the wool pulled off. The rose-colored glasses were shattered. Going into that. So for me, from my perspective, when that happened, it was so helpful for me, for people to understand what I was going through alone.
Prior to,
you know? And now we're all there. We all know, okay? And I just think more than anything, even if people don't agree with this, they should agree with choice. They should agree with choice for our bodies. I was able to get an opioid, no problem, a daily opioid. And it was even suggested that I get a pain patch, an opioid patch to put on my body that would immediately make me an addict, you know, and whether I wanted to say I was or not, my body is addicted. I think that people have this big mental block where they don't understand that they don't have a choice in addiction with something like that, you know, that's on you. You're addicted. It's just how it goes. So I think people think that they can beat things in their mind. And it's not like that. But with the help of this substance, we can. And it's at the point now that, like, they can't kill us all.
Safety in numbers.
That's it.
They tried once already, 5 years ago.
They can't kill us all. So we're here. We know what it does. We know that it worked. And
yeah, but I'm right there with you. The only reason I have health insurance is for my catastrophic. God forbid something happened to me or one of my family members. I only spend money on longevity products at this point. I don't go to a doctor that's not, you know, a practitioner of peptides and things like that, which of course is not covered by health insurance. I think the majority of a lot of the population is finally seeing that and moving that way. So then that's where it begs the question, this becomes a drug that is approved and is available, you know, through the healthcare system. Is that something that we would see more? Do you think it would be more on like the peptide longevity side of things, or is it something that might actually become?
Well, they get Suboxone to everybody for free, don't they, Bryan?
Suboxone for a Medicaid patient is no cost, no fee. We have a lot of Frankenstein systems in this country, which were designed to achieve a specific purpose to serve the well-being and best interests of the American people, but that do anything but that. In fact, seem to be committed to doing the exact opposite of that. You mentioned your $3,500 a month on health care. I think a lot of people who hear this resonate with the tremendous pressure point that just being able to access a doctor creates in an individual's finances. Why have we gotten here? We have gotten here because systems which are designed to serve human interests have been corrupted for the purpose of serving the financial interest first, foremost, and always. And in order to effectuate that, you have to have a population that has the bit and bridle of political control imposed, with an alienation from the divinity within, which gives us the certain inalienable right of autonomy and a position to look at our government as our servant to which it is to be accountable to us, not vice versa. When we think about the opioid epidemic in particular, this is the gravest engineered humanitarian catastrophe to play out within America since at least the end of the 19th century. It is engineered. It has been demonstrated to be so. If anyone questions that, they can go and read the first-hand account, Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, where he takes the first-hand documentation and demonstrates how Purdue Pharma worked hand in hand with knowledge of forethought as to the highly addictive nature of this medication, and in a manner which was premeditated, deployed it in those areas of the country that had the highest rates of poverty, the highest rates of disability, the lowest rates of education, and the highest rates of consumption of their prior product, Valium. They had a mapped out strategy, and they had the full cooperation of the federal government to fast track the entire endeavor.
FDA approved.
Yeah.
You know, on the way over here, I was talking to the fine gentleman who helped me get to this podcast about just the grief that has been associated with reconciling where we are now versus the country we were born into. This is not the America that we were taught to believe in. We are witnessing monstrous conditions right in front of us, symptomatically expressed through 1.5 million people who are not here now, who have died prematurely due to drug overdose, suicide, and alcohol-related disease. Our society is on fire, and power is the arsonist. The indiscriminate perceived power to run over top of whoever stands in the way of the money grab. And that money grab often involves monetizing sustained human misery. And these are the very systems that must be broken to the will of the sovereign individual made in God's image, for which this country was established as a home, and to be made the servant instead of the master. So how does Ibogaine come to America? Through the achievement of that objective. Medically, politically, culturally. This is an emancipation mission for the sake of our future. And it is every kindred, tongue, and tribe who is of God to serve that mission if it is to be successful.
And you speak to, things have to be, to your point, I think you mentioned medically. I think we're starting to see and break down the medical system. People are opening their eyes to the fact that it's not in your best interest or mine, it's in a bottom line. I think politically, some things have changed in areas very different than they were in the past. People's eyes have been open there. I think right now the biggest battle we're in is the cultural one, where we are being trained, algorithms are training us, what we watch on TV, to pick sides. And I think the most important thing that both of you have ever told me about this medicine in particular is it's nonpartisan. It is about humans. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle. It can heal all of us, and we all have someone afflicted by these problems. So, again, I think we're becoming aware of the medical part, the political part. How do we heal the culture?
These sorts of discussions, the beautiful thing is information is no longer a monopoly operation. There was one point in time that you had to go to CBS or NBC or ABC News or a handful of newspapers in order to be able to piece together what the truth may be. At this point, and much to the chagrin of the establishment, we have a multifractal communication environment. There are thousands upon thousands of individually driven outlets through which information is disseminated. Some of it's correct, some of it's not. But for the individual who is the information consumer, there are convergences. And those convergences help us establish what reality truly is, separate and apart from the mass media mayhem machine controlled by 6 multimedia conglomerates that produce 90% of all U.S. media content, driving that algorithmic division that encourages us to desecrate each other.
Turn your TV off.
The dividend.
Oh, I tell everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Turn
the
your
dividend.
TV off and go outside.
The dividend of division is control. And the only way that we overcome it is to identify it, to call it out, and to act in deliberate unity with each other, reaching out across those artificial boundaries, having those individual conversations, and pursuing unified mission to recognize each other's kinships as expressions of an eternal creator whose essence is almighty unconditional love for each of us. If we just happen to believe that we are the random accident of astrophysics with no greater meaning or purpose, that this is a randomized experience and you just get yours now in a smash and grab philosophy that is modeled from on high, by the way, in the places of greatest power, we have a smash and grab philosophy, and it aims to smash and grab every bit of your human potential for its own use. And the only way that we stop that is to band together and to make sure that we can always be individually special and achieve the best purposes of our lives through which we can thrive and not merely survive wishing for the day in which we no longer have to wake up.
We just keep telling our stories, you know,
Right.
like, and then more people tell their stories. There's so many other people that have come to this medicine that I know, and I know that you know as well, that cannot speak. They are not safe to speak. So being able to be in a world where we are free to speak about our experiences, that's what's going to change society, you know?
Yeah.
You don't
for
know
sure.
what you don't know.
Well, and sharing is the greatest gift you can give
Yeah.
anyone else. Sharing your experience, sharing what you've gone through. I tell everyone that, you know, that you have no idea what your story can do for someone else. And if it helps or saves even one person's life, then it was totally worth sharing it, even if it made you uncomfortable. And that's why I have this here, right? Is
why
to
we're
bring
here.
people on to share stories. And storytelling, you know, at its core is, I think, one of the most greatest examples, to your point, of freedom and what was once the American dream. And as long as it's sharing the story, but what's happened now is news is no longer news, right? It's no longer information. It's taking what happened and adding a whole bunch of nonsense to it and then selling it to one side or the other, or creating an agenda to push one side or the other. I guess my hope here is that everybody can see, again, no matter who you are, what you believe, you know, who you vote for, et cetera, this comes down to a human issue. And I would have never thought I had to say that or thought there would be any debate on that, you know, a month and a half ago. But to see human life be taken and humans celebrate that does, you know, it takes me to a place where I'm like, there's now people who don't believe in humanity, who don't care about humanity. And unfortunately, their feelings and thoughts and beliefs get in the way of that. So I want to be part of what y'all are doing and be part of sharing, like saving humanity at its core, at its root. If we can get this medicine to more people, hopefully it can spread like wildfire.
You know, and at its core and at its root is unconditional love.
Right.
And that's why, like, no matter, even all of this that we're talking about, like, I fully feel in my heart, I know that's going to win.
Right.
No matter what, I know it's going to win. So we just have to remind people that exists, that
Right.
unconditional love exists. And a lot of it's just by, you know, getting back to our core. I know a lot of New Yorkers talk about how great New York City was and how bonded it was together immediately after 9/11, you know? And it's like, we're having a 9/11 right now and no building's falling.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And we need to band together, you know, and just and realize that's what's happened right now.
Right.
And just start loving each other again rather than this big political divide. Like I'll be real honest with you, I don't like any of them. Someone's like, what side are you on? I'm like,
the human side.
yeah,
is
I'm
what
on
it
the
should
human
be,
side. I'm on
right?
the unconditional love side.
Truth and honesty
And
side.
that exists, that propels, that lives, and that's what drives us all. And it's why I'm sitting in this chair today, and it's what I know is on the other side.
Right.
And I know that will prevail, and I know that we will win.
Every generation has to re-win its freedom. Freedom is not a given among humans. The vast majority of the human experience has been defined by broad-based subjugation of masses of people by a few small elites who have sapped the lifeblood out of them for their own individual luxuriant use. This age is no different. We are up against the spirit of self-entitled aristocracy. And that spirit of aristocracy knows no individualized skin suit. It does not come packaged in a D or an R. It comes packaged in an attitude of entitled superiority of one individual over the right to determine the fate of the other. This is a divine mission whereby everyone who is of God, including those who exercise the sacred right to not believe in God, because the most sacred right is free will, are up against everyone who aspires to be God. And those of us who are of God, we will win. We will win, and we will win together in unity and love.
Yeah, we say it all the time. You know, the American dream is one generation away from dying. So if we don't continue to share our stories, to tell our story, to remind people that unconditional love is there, you know, the more we stay silent, the closer we get to that being a reality.
You know, at least in my life, you mentioned the evidence of divine fingerprint on this mission, and this could be an entirely different episode if I were to share just through my eyes all the wonderful things that came together around this project to make this a biblical reality. You know, I sit here and I'm going to be 50 in 4 days.
What?
And I look at the runway that I hope that will be on the remainder of my days. If I can live to be like my grandfathers, I should make it to my late 80s or early 90s. She and I have sat here and talked about this destiny that we are trying to bring about. It is just a beginning to a much greater end. With the emergence of artificial intelligence and automation, we are about to see dramatic changes that are on parallel with our grandparents who may have seen a horse-drawn buggy going down the road, watch the first man walk in the moon in a lifespan. The implications are profound, and just as with anything else that is created by the human hand, those things that are on the near horizon can lift all boats and make a better day for everyone, or they can unleash a hellscape all across this world that we all hope that we pass away from as quickly as possible because of the misery. If we are going to see broad swaths of humans sidelined without any purpose to deploy their labor because it's no longer necessary, what is the system that comes next? We celebrate truth, justice, the American way, and free market capitalism. These are states of being that are going to have to evolve in response to miraculous social and economic evolution that can create immense wealth to the point of where we're just about to solve scarcity. I think Elon Musk has talked about we are at hand of solving material scarcity. And capitalism has always been, at least until its perversion into a Pluto kleptocracy, the best system for allocating and managing scarcity that we can have. Well, once you solve scarcity, what comes next? The advancement of plant medicine and its affirmation of divinity that is offered to the open-hearted mind to receive that is vitally necessary if we are going to navigate this evolution in human events so as to have a redemptive future rather than one that is catastrophic. Ibogaine's medical establishment is a beachhead to make that reality come to pass much sooner rather than later because it must. If not, rather than being servants and emancipators, we will find ourselves surrounded by cannibals. This is about the freedom and primacy of the human soul. And as Angela and I sit here together, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that it rains.
Well, and that's probably the most uplifting message I've heard in a very long time, and promising one, because I think to the point we all know what it can do for people. And if we can open more hearts and minds to be open to receiving it, right? That's I think right now where y'all are so important to tell the story, because the only way someone says, okay, I'm willing, is because they hear other people's stories. Like I said, the sharing of the stories is so important, because that's what we have to do. We have to make people we have to share to a point where people will turn and say, okay, I'm willing. My heart is open to it. I'm willing. And instead of the messages that we find on TV, on the internet, everything else of, this is who you are, this is how you should act, this is how you should be, this is how you should think, no matter what. And I think if we can get more people open to it, the world will be so much better, starting right here. And my question to you guys is, we're doing these, this state by state, it sounds like as of now, what's the trajectory, or is there a plan, or is there a possibility that it becomes a federally approved, is that the next goal? Would we rather just keep it in the state's hands so that it doesn't get, perverted by the...
Before you answer that question, I want to say one thing. It's so important to realize, like, we're talking about the fact that there's people that have opinions about this, that don't want this to go forward for whatever, fear, finance, whatever, some kind of block is in the way. I want to remind us, they gave a Nobel Peace Prize for the lobotomy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
So that has destroyed so many people's existence and so many political family members' existence, because they were trying to take care of someone's mental health. If we had this substance, there would have been no need for the lobotomy.
Right.
Yeah. So this is something that has the effort for, and the steam, the legs for a Nobel Peace Prize. Like, this truly frees people from their mental torture. A lobotomy didn't free anyone from mental torture. And
just cut it out.
Yeah, I think that if there's going to be a pathway to answer that question for the federal government to get involved, we're going to have to remember things like that, and then demand that we want to do better, and that we have substances to do better. But right now, it looks like it's a lot easier to do this on a state-by-state level.
So when you think about your civics that you were taught in 8th grade, you have the federal government, which is the central organizing government force in America. But then you have the individual states, and there's a relationship there. And while we may have it in our mind that the states are mere subdivisions and agents of the federal government, that is not true.
No.
Under the 10th Amendment, they have the certain ability to do things on their own, free of federal constraint.
Right.
Just like convening a constitutional convention where you have 2/3 of the state legislatures get together, pass an amendment to the Constitution, completely bypasses Congress, and it's done. We are replicating what is sort of the equivalent of a constitutional convention. We are bringing in as many states individually to fund this medical breakthrough so that the federal system will be responsive to that concrete reality. It's not something for them to ignore. It's not something for them to negotiate and deny away. It is there for them to answer. And answer it they shall. And they will answer it with integrity, and they will answer it responsively, as long as we have good leadership on the inside, and we have some, that's willing to take a humanitarian perspective on the need to reform ossified and corrupted systems to make them be as they should, whether that is an individual like Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a man who 10 years ago I would never have dreamed that I would align on so many fundamental issues with. And while he and I might disagree over the color of the paint and the drapes that we'd hang in the house, we recognize the foundation's crumbling, and we've got to make it right. And there are millions of people who recognize the same thing, who wear different labels, who have different skin suits, but if they ever got unplugged from their television and their social media algorithm and had a conversation about the day-to-day challenge of meeting that health insurance bill, of being able to access appropriate medical care, of what options are available to that relative that they love who can't manage to get out of addiction.
I also think it's so important, too, that we don't let ourselves as humans miss something or keep something from the people that we love because of someone's skin suit. You know, there's these, who cares?
Well,
what their
and like-
other politics are.
Well, and like you
if
said,
they're
if
going
you
to help
unplug-
us push this through for the
Right.
betterment of humanity, they're our guy, they're our gal, you know? And if you're so ignorant that you'll let someone's skin suit get in the way,
Right.
then you're literally taking something, healing from your grandchildren.
Sure. Well, and
Yep.
and like you said, you know, turn off the TV,
Mm-hmm.
put away your algorithm, and start having those conversations. And we're far more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
I hate to do
Far
this.
more alike.
I have to go to the restroom.
Yeah, of course.
Stop.
I'm surprised it took this long. For being honest.
Everybody that's followed Kentucky and is due to fall in line and receive amplification through. Oh no, that was introduced in January. Of
Yeah, I was
25.
going to say.
Yeah, go through it.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen this before. That's pretty good.
Okay.
So
Well, all right. Here's what we're going to say is that this demonstrates all the potential energy that is out there that must be constructively
So also-
harnessed.
And who believes that this is a value? I mean, you have a list like
so
this.
we
with
don't
these
even
states.
need, you know, we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it getting to the federal level. Honestly,
Well, you have to get federal approval. That's the whole part. The FDA is the federal agency that regulates
Right.
the availability of medicine in the United States. So one thing that I might also mention is that
closer.
Before you get too close.
there very well may be an opportunity to testify in front of the U.S. Senate Veteran Affairs Committee before the year is up.
And that would be you.
That would be me and some others around Ibogaine who
Nice.
want to be able to speak directly to the federal government about the necessity of it being responsive.
And I
to what
believe
everybody else
I
is
know
doing.
you've talked before about your relationship with the Luttrell brothers, and they've stood in front of people and spoken about it quite a bit.
Yes, they sure have.
Yeah, and the experience they had and how that's helped them. And you know, when we look at this list, we've pulled a list up of all the states who are now getting involved in this or might be getting involved. We're hoping, you know, you spoke to Mississippi. You think in 2026 that will pass there. Can we talk about the states who are on board? Because a lot of people listening might say, "Hey, is my state doing this?" And if not, how do we get them to get involved?
So we have, since the end of the Kentucky Project in December of 23 and the announcement of the intention in Texas in January of 25, there has been an explosion of multi-state energy, which, if properly harnessed, will make what we've talked about here this afternoon a reality. We see Arizona, which was second after Texas. It appropriated $5 million to be matched by a co-equal $5 million to conduct a series of phase 1 trials for various neurological conditions in veterans that passed successfully. There was a bill introduced in the Kentucky legislature in 25, which is a prelude to a similar effort in the state's budget session in 26. We have Louisiana, which, as I sit here on October 22nd, has just concluded a hearing in its legislature to appropriate money to partner with Texas. A Mississippi hearing occurred in August. There will be legislation likely introduced in January of 26 to also partner with Texas. And then you have some research states like Nevada and New York and Washington. There are two others that I would mention who passed bills that mandate that state government research the efficacy of Ibogaine and its potential applications, and those are both Ohio and Indiana. So they can be added to that list. The state of West Virginia came tantalizingly close to being the first state to pass an official mandate for Ibogaine's pharmacological development. It made it through its state house by an almost unanimous vote with only one no vote by someone who just doesn't believe in government doing anything. And then it became hostage to dynamics between the state House of Delegates and the state Senate over legislative priorities, and it passed 2 voice votes but didn't get a third because the chambers were in dispute with each other. So there very well may be in 2026 a successful passage of a bill that already has tremendous momentum in West Virginia. I've not sat here and kept count, but I think that we pretty well see that there are already almost a dozen states, if not more, that have actively introduced and or passed legislation. So we've got all the foundation that we need. We've just got to maintain focus, discipline, and execute while lifting all the voices like Angela is helping create to speak to the wonderful reality that Ibogaine can create for an individual who is without hope.
Right.
You know what's so cool? That list is so much bigger than we even said it was going to be
1
in
year ago,
20
or in
in
May.
2026.
Yeah.
So Yeah, and what can people do? Well, you can call, if we mentioned your state, you can call your representatives and tell them that you're for this. And if we didn't mention your state, you can call your representatives and tell them that you're for this.
Wake up. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I mean,
and look at the states that
that's
are in
how
it.
government works. If you're the squeaky wheel gets the grease, period. So that's what you can do to help. Now,
Well, and
as far as
no one state wants to be behind on something that from behind the others on something that's really, because if you look at these states, there's some that are Republican, there are leaning, there are some that are Democrat leaning. So at this point, again, it is not a partisan issue; it is a human issue, and nobody wants to be the last one in line. I'm guessing Hawaii will be, because they usually are, but some of these states are gonna. If called enough.
Oh, we can't pick on Hawaii
I know,
like
sweet
that.
Hawaii,
Oh my God. You know what? It's just, it's so motivating to see that this is happening, and
The list
this
is
is the way it
growing.
is. And I think we talked earlier about what do you do if you want to get this, for your family member, and this isn't available in the
Right.
States right now, and it's not. And unfortunately, there's a year-long wait list at most providers for
Right.
this out of the country. And you need about $10,000 or more to get it done.
Right.
And so that's where it's at right now, and that's the reality of
Right.
where the access is at.
Is you can get this life-saving medicine today. Well,
I'm going to say this, though. I suggest to people, because people are like $10,000, and then they try to victimize themselves over that amount of money. I spent $150,000 out of pocket for medical care, $150,000 that I didn't have. If you need to try to save yourself, use every means available. I've sold a wedding ring. I've sold cars. I've sold clothes.
Right.
I've, beg, borrow, and steal. Call your friends.
Right.
Say, I need help.
Except to
Can you
steal.
go to your
I can't
church.
say that.
Yeah. Well,
Well, if you even have to steal to stay alive, steal to stay alive. I don't know what you got to do, but like,
as someone whose car's been broken into twice in the last 2 weeks, I don't advise. But
okay, beg and borrow. Okay,
Yeah.
don't steal. It's morally and ethically
Right.
wrong. But just if you want to stay alive, $10,000 isn't that far in your way. And if you have some time, if you need to get on a list at a facility and save up, I know that the service provider that we work with would allow that. So there's a lot of humanity in this industry.
Right.
And if you just come to these people with the human to human label or angle,
issue. Right. Yeah.
they will be able to come out. This isn't the Wizard of Oz type issue. Like anyone can talk to me. Brian's I don't know. Brian's hard to talk to sometimes, but Brian's fairly
To get a
accessible
hold of,
human to
yeah.
get a hold of. No, he's easy to talk to, hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
But even Trevor Miller that we both know from Ambia, like he'll talk to you one-on-one.
Right.
There is no I'm better than you. I won't come sit at the table and talk to you. So. We're all actually having a talk tomorrow night, a fireside chat here in Austin, Texas. And that's part of our mission is to sit in these rooms and these chairs and have conversations with people that want answers to this and want to try to find access for their family members. So if anybody needs help, you can hit me up on social media. I'm Rocks in Her Pockets or Angela Skudin. Or shoot me an email, angela@343fund.org. If you need help for your friend or family member, I will personally do everything in my power to help you.
Yeah.
So, and until then, call and demand that your state provides access to this and access to research funds for this.
Yeah.
And
So just to
make
be
a
clear
difference.
again, if you or someone needs this help, you're looking at $10,000. You're looking at a trip to most likely Mexico. You're looking at a week. It's a week process, more or less. And most likely a 1 year at best wait list. If we do call our states, if we do push this out there, if we do help get the information and the evidence that is available already, that this medicine really truly can save lives and ultimately humanity, because it is of God.
and restore lives.
And restore lives. True. The more, like you said, the squeaky wheel gets noticed, the more we can knock on those doors and call those phones and tell them we want this, the sooner it's available to more people and we don't have to jump through all of those hoops. Not to say those hoops aren't jumpable. It's to your point. If it's going to save your life or someone you love's life, it's totally worth it. Do it. I know plenty of people that I've already told about it and they're very interested and I'm interested in helping them get there as well. And with your help, hopefully we will get them there. But again, I think There's no doubt about it. This is about humanity. This is about helping people. And I'm so grateful to know both of y'all for so many reasons. And I'm excited for tomorrow night and to continue sharing the message and getting this out for everyone, because I think the sooner this is available to at least our states and our country, I think the sooner we can help save this world in general.
We can right the opioid crisis with this.
Away.
And our federal government, that is the bare minimum that they need to be doing, especially after the Sattler family and everything that we talked about and the crisis that we're in now. So they owe us this.
Correct. Yes.
This is a long haul journey.
Right.
If Ibogaine became available tomorrow as a medication, we have a nation of 330 million people. It took us 30 years to get to where we're at.
Right.
It's going to take us every bit of that to get out.
Right.
And with reference to age, if I, at the time that I pass, am able to see that the trajectory of the ship is moving to a different destination, I will go out feeling as though I had helped make some positive difference. And to your audience, I would say this, if you have not had a plant medicine experience, please don't feel deficient if for whatever reason you wax and wane in faith. Because even now as I walk, I will often question whether I'm walking where I am supposed to be with what I believe to be absolute concrete knowledge of the reality of God. But if that's not something that you feel with conviction, just think about your own self. There is only one known phenomenon to produce iron, and that is a supernova, the explosion of a star. The iron in your blood originated with the explosion of a star. And the convergence of all of the large and intricate circumstances that were necessary to bring you into existence as a sentient being is the strongest and most concrete proof of the reality of God that can be given. So if you question if God is real, look in the mirror. You are your own best evidence. And I thank God for you.
We're
Thank you.
stardust, baby.
Yeah. Amen. I think that's how we got to go out.
Yeah.
That's,
We are.
that's a mic drop moment.
We are. That is. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And yes, I thank God for both of you. I'm excited for tomorrow. And I'm excited to maybe do this again in a year with another update and 10 more states at least on the list.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank y'all.